perhaps.
Medical assistants will go around this way.
And then our assistant project director, that's going to recipient of services,
Steve Strong, representing the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities.
Here with the Autism Society of North Carolina.
Can they speak up? I can't hear. I'm just speaking up today and I'm a parent. I'm Ashley Young and I'm a parent. I work for Universal Mental Health.
First class and the Batters Association.
Introduce yourself, Mary.
I'm Mary Whitley, community programs and employment studies.
No, you're actually right on time. Ahead of time. And then let's go ahead, and since there's not that many of us, just about who's in the audience. Do you want to go first, Debbie? We'll go around the other way.
I'm Cindy Ellers, the Clinical Director for East Carolina Behavioral Health LMEMC.
Hello, and I'm Mary Short, again with my daughter Katie, and I have an email group of about 200 families, and we are mostly severe and profound, formerly Home Supports Level 5, Home Supports Level 4 individuals. I just sort of want you to truly understand the severe and profound end of individuals who are living in their own homes currently. And I have some doubts that anyone looking at the home and community-based service waiver takes seriously the term home. I had an attorney say at OAH Thursday that the LMEMCO is under no obligation to provide services to an individual in their home. They are under an obligation to provide services in the community. So, I can't imagine where that lawyer for the LMEMCO would have gotten that opinion, but thought maybe this group would want to be made aware. Thank you.
I'm Maya Williams with the Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse.
Wow. You're going to do better than that.
Developmental Disabilities and Substance Abuse Services.
I'm Kenneth Bostell. I'm with the Division of Medical Assistance.
Sarah Potter.
Matt.
I'm Judy Taylor with Mom's Kids. I represent other self-advocates other than my son David Taylor Jr. Who are being screwed by the system and who have served in the past on this committee. And I'd like to know why they're not serving on these committees now. People who live and breathe these services need to be on this committee to make sure these services are put out properly for people who have them.
I'm Monica Hamlin with DMA. Lisa Jones, DMA.
Sandy Ellsworth with DMHDD-SAS. And I'm Deb Goda with DMA.
Just in time, Ellen.
I'm Ellen Ferry, and I am a IGD that services.
Okay. So, yesterday there was a webinar, and that was from HSRI. Was anybody here on it? I know there wasn't a whole lot of people. Do you want to say anything about it? Was it helpful? Should we have it again? Should we share the slides?
It had some good information. There was more information I don't think the person who was doing attention did not have already picked up.
We'll send out the slides to everybody. Okay, yeah, we'll send it out to the group if we have the presentation. And I know none of this got out to you ahead of time. You've got a parent person that should be really chastised. I got a little overwhelmed. So, my grandmother passed away not too long ago, and so I'm a little bit behind, but I will do better next time. So my apologies for that, because we really should have had time to get these definitions ahead of time. So I accept full responsibility, but like I say, we will do better. So anything else you want to talk about? Any other comments before we, so like I said, Dave will be a few minutes late. as we discussed at the last meeting, what he had said that you wanted to, or what we had discussed as the agenda for this week would be A, that we would try to get to that HSRI presentation, and B, some of the topics on the agenda here. So we had a waiver and services 101 presentation, and then a discussion, because we've been talking about community guide and care coordination, what the definitions look like and stuff, so we're prepared to talk to you about that. So I don't know if you want to have any discussion beforehand, or if we're ready to just let Deb work her magic over here. Okay.
And has a limited amount of magic.
Do we need to turn off?
You should trust in the place. Is that better? Okay. So, just very high-level overview of some of the 1915C waiver rules and requirements. The 1915C refers to the section of Social Security Act that governs the 1915C waiver. It allows states to waive certain requirements. So it waives the counting of income of spouse or of family for a child. And it waives the services that are traditionally only provided under the state plan. So you're allowed to provide facilitated services, home modifications, and things of that nature. To be eligible for a 1915C waiver, you must require an institutional level of care, so either skilled nursing facility, hospital, or ICF-IID, intermediate care facility for individuals with intellectual disabilities, depending on what waiver you're involved with. Meet the target group as outlined in the waiver. You have to meet Medicaid eligibility requirements. So if you are unable to meet those requirements, unable to meet that spend down, you would not be eligible for services. You have to require one or more services to be on the waiver. You can't be on the waiver just to have an exception to the income rule. So for a child, for example, whose parents otherwise make too much money, if they are able to get on the waiver, they also qualify for other Medicaid services. But they must use at least one regular waiver service monthly. And you have to choose the waiver over institutional care. So you actually have to sign off every year that you have chosen to do this. Now, states choose the service definitions that they want to include in their waiver. And there are two types of services. They're supplemental to the state. You can't duplicate, but you can extend. So for example, if your state plan says you can have 80 hours a month of personal care, you can write your waiver so that you have an extended state plan service that says once those 80 hours are exhausted, you can have an additional 80 hours a month. And that would be an extended state plan service. Or you can have a service that is completely outside of the state plan, such as home modifications or supported employment, where you have something that is all unto itself and only in the waiver.
And what,
So when we're writing these definitions, CMS has 4 service definitions for the most common services outlined in the waiver instructions. You can go outside of that, but CMS does have to approve any of those services, and they can question the scope and the parameters. You have to describe your services in concrete terms. So while we want to make our services flexible, we can't just say it includes bathing and dressing, but is not limited to. We have to actually either provide exhaustive lists, or we have to totally explain the purpose of the service in concrete terms. A couple of things that we can't do. Things that are diversional or recreational cannot be covered. There are very few exceptions to room and board, but you cannot use, for the most part, Medicaid cannot pay for room and board for services or things that would be considered a normal household expense in anyone's family. For example, cable TV. We could not justify paying for cable TV. Whereas if we were paying for cable access as part of home monitoring services, we may be able to, because the home monitoring and alert systems would be outside of normal family responsibilities. You also can't duplicate anything that's the responsibility of the school system or anything that's the responsibility of vocational. If you had a service that was just to equipment, for example, let's say you wanted to put in a pool for recreation, that would not be allowable. If you wanted to purchase movie tickets, that would not be allowable. If you wanted to pay for services for someone to go to the Y to interact with other people, become part of their community, you could pay for the services. But if you simply wanted to pay for it for fun, it would not be allowable. So we have to describe things in terms of other benefits, not just recreation.
Well, those are recreational, that's diversional.
A DVD player. Anything that would be considered diversional and recreational are essentially the same.
So we're using the word interchangeably.
Yes.
Any other questions about anything she said so far at this point? Because obviously this is really key to what we're going to be talking about later this week. So I see you, Mary. Is there any way we can talk about this stuff, talk to the audience at the end, though? Can we
Don't
do
you
that?
think the audience is important?
It is important, but we need to get through this presentation.
It's really a clarifying question. When you talked about state plan services and then adding waiver services, what is it that North Carolina has chosen? Do we supplement state plan services? Do we supplant state plan services? What's the relationship between the state plan, the personal care services, and the waiver personal care services? Are we still allowed to use, or has North Carolina chosen not to do that? You said CMS gives the state a choice, but then you didn't say what North Carolina has chosen.
We do not have an extended state plan service definition. We have not picked up where the state plan leaves off. We have something that is substantially different. We allow for queuing, we allow for supervision. We don't require the hands-on needs that are required in the state plan. So we have a definition that is substantially different and is not an extended state plan service.
Any other questions from you folks? Because the definitions that we're going to be looking at afterwards, this is obviously very pertinent to what we'll be looking at as we do this. So, but, okay. Looks like you're doing good.
That was the magic
Okay. Okay. So what we have in North Carolina, and you probably already know this, so I apologize if you already do. For those of you that don't, we actually have two waivers. We have a 1915B waiver, which allows for closure of the provider network. And that covers your mental health and substance abuse services. And then the 1915C waiver, which is the home and community-based services, which is probably what this group is most familiar with. If you're on the C waiver, then you're on the B waiver. The B waiver is sort of the umbrella, and the C waiver feeds up into it, if you will. So let's